So today I want to talk about multiplying binomials. So the technique used to multiply binomials is called FOIL. FOIL stands for first, outer, inner, last. So given a generic binomial like so, we multiply x squared times x squared, that would be the first. We multiply x squared times the b, and that would be our outer. Our inner would be negative a times x squared, and our last would be negative a times b. Let's work through some examples. So I have negative a squared minus 5 times negative 4a squared minus 2. The technique we're going to use here is called FOIL. So now I'm going to multiply my first. So I have negative a squared times negative 4a squared. Negative and negative is positive. And we could think of their imaginary 1 in front of the a. So this would just be 4. A squared times a squared is just going to be a to the 4th. Now we move on to our outer. Right, so we have our negative a squared times negative 2. And negative is a positive. A squared, right, is just going to tag along, and we're just going to be left with 2a squared. So now I have to move on to my inner. My inner is going to be negative 5 times negative 4a squared. So negative and negative is a positive. 5 and 4 is 20. And the a squared is just going to come along for the ride. So now I have to do my last. My last is going to be negative 5 times negative 2, which gives me positive 10. And so if you notice, we're not quite done yet because we have like terms. We have the 2a squared and the 20a squared. And when we combine these two, we'll be left with 22a squared. We're still going to have that plus 10 on the end, and we're still going to have the 4a to the 4th in the beginning. So this would actually be my answer. 4a to the 4th, 22a squared plus 10. Let's do another problem. So this time I have 7p minus 3q times 3p minus 8q. Can you guess the name of the technique we're going to do? You've guessed it. It's called FOIL. Right, so let's start with our first. 7p times 3p. 7p times 3p. 7 and 3 is 21. P and p is p squared. Let's go to the outer. So now we have 7p times negative 8q. Well, 7 and negative 8, negative and positive is a negative, right? 7 and 8 is 56. P and q is just going to be pq. Now we move on to our inner. So our inner is going to be negative 3q times 3p. So a negative and a positive is a negative. 3 and 3 is 9. Q times p is just going to be pq. And now we have to do our last. So we have negative 3q times negative 8q. Negative and negative is a positive. 3 and 8 is 24. Q and q is q squared. Awesome. So if you look at what we have so far, you'll notice we're not quite done yet. What do we have? That's right, you guessed it. We have like terms. So we have negative 56pq and negative 9pq. And when you add a negative and a negative, you get a bigger negative, right? So combining 56 and 9, right, we get negative 65pq plus we still have the 24q squared here, and then we still have the 21p squared in the beginning. 21p squared. So this would be our answer. 21p squared minus 65pq plus 24q squared. Let's do another problem. So in this example, can you guess what we're going to do? Pause, take a break, see if you can figure it out. And if you guessed it, we're going to do FOIL, right? So we have the negative 18 times negative 18b squared plus 6 times 1 minus 2c cubed, right? So we're going to start with our first, and we're going to do negative 18b squared times 1, right? A negative and a positive, right? Is just going to be a negative, right? And because we're timesing by 1, it's just going to be the same number. Awesome, so that's our first. So now let's do our outer. I have negative 18b squared times negative 2c cubed. Okay, so I have a negative and a negative, so I'm going to get a positive. 18 and 2 is 36. B squared, right? Well, I can't combine it with any b squared on the other term, right? So it would just be b squared, and also c cubed would just tag along since there's no like terms. So now I have to do the inner. So I do 6 times 1, which is positive 6, and I do the last, which is going to be 6 times negative 2c cubed, right? So a positive and a negative makes a negative. 6 and 2 is 12. And then we would just have the c cubed on the end. So we end up with an answer like this. Negative 18b squared plus 36b squared c cubed plus 6 minus 12c to the cubed. And if you notice, there are no like terms we can combine in this answer, so we're done. Awesome. So now we have 5k cubed minus 15k squared, right, times negative 6k squared minus 2k cubed. And the technique we're going to use today is FOIL. Awesome. So let's multiply our first. Let's go 5k cubed times negative 6k squared, right? So I'm multiplying a positive and a negative, which is going to give me a negative, right? 5 and 6 is just going to be 30. And then I have k cubed and k squared. They both have k's in them, so we're just going to add the exponents. I get k to the 5th. Let's move on to our outer. So we have 5k cubed times negative 2k cubed, right? So a positive and a negative is going to be a negative. 5 and 2 is just going to be 10. K cubed times k cubed is just going to be k to the 6th. Awesome. Let's do our inner. So we have 15k squared times negative 6k squared. So a negative and a negative is going to be a positive. And then we have 15 and 6. And that's going to give us 90. Now, we have to do our last. So we have negative 15k squared times negative 2k cubed. So negative and a negative is going to be a positive. 15 and 2 is going to be 30. K squared plus, or k squared times, right, k to the 3rd will just give you k to the 5th. Right? And if you notice, right, we do have like terms. So our like terms are going to be the negative 30k to the fifth and a positive 30k to the fifth, right? And because, right, one's subtraction, one's addition, they'll just cancel each other out. So what we'll be left with, right? So this will go away and this will go away. And what we'll be left with is just the middle portion. So we'll just be left with our 90k squared minus 10k to the 6. So this will be the answer.